Hopefully the second participant will join us in a few minutes. So thank you very much for coming to this second B session of our conference named Pedagogy, Art and Practice. We have 3 participants in this session, unfortunately 1 cancellation. Each presentation lasts for 20 minutes, and after that we will have a discussion. I will have these gentle reminders on how much time you have left. So without further ado, I will call Anna Bauer from Department of Pedagogy, University of Zagreb, to present her topic, The Aura of Realized Pedagogical Practice. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, is this on? Okay. Okay. So, hello to everybody. My name is Anna Bauer. I work at the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Department of Pedagogy. Zamolili su me da izložim na engleskom, ali možemo poslije. But I will read a bit more, so it's easier for me to present. This is, if someone listened to the last presentations in this room, this is also kind of open, researched, more exploratory, like thought experiment on this topic. So keep that in mind. So my area of interest is educational philosophy and ethics. And today I will speak about the notice of teaching as a craft, artistry, and of a teacher as an artist. This will be a theoretical thought experiment on how can we better understand the teaching practice or pedagogical praxis by looking at it as an art form. I'll present my ideas on what theoretical frameworks that are usually used to think about art can better help us to understand pedagogical practice or praxis. So back when I was a first-year student of pedagogy, I had a seminar presentation about some topic on didactics and teaching, and I said in my seminar that I believe teaching to be an art. And my professor at the time, she interrupted me and asked, "Are you sure?" And this was a very scary moment because I had to reflect, why did I say this? But I still stand on that point. So this would be like an experiment on why this is so. And this is not to say that teachers should be a literal artist, like a painter or an actor, but how, in a sense, praxis is his art. Today, I'll try to offer one possible theoretical explanation on how is it possible to think about teaching as an art form and why it is important to have that option in mind in order to think about our pedagogical practice and praxis. So recently I was listening to a class that was held by my mentor, and he was talking about Aristotle and Nietzsche. And I was especially interested in Nietzsche's work, The Birth of Tragedy, in which he delineates 2 ways or 2 modes of human existence that and attitudes towards art making or existing in general. And that would be the Apollonian and Dionysian, right? And now, for Nietzsche, he prefers the Dionysian, which he finds to be the true source of art, and that's the instinctual, dark, and intuitive core of being, while Apollonian is pure, clean, light, and orderly. From this divide, it is obvious that in the society, the Apollonian way is preferred, while the Dionysian is ostracized and demonized, whilst they should actually be balanced. Not only we can view these modes as modes for art making, but also as operating modes for living or existing in a wider sense. Now, let's keep that in mind for later. And first, let's focus on how do I get to the point of understanding praxis as an art form. So first of all, when we look at our own human existence, we know that we are bound to reality through 2 necessary conditions. So Kant called this time and space, and those are time and space. So humans are always contextually bound to the here and now. These 2 main conditions of reality are also conditions necessary for a pedagogical situations to manifest. No matter what the medium of teaching is, we have to, in some sense, be here and now, teacher and the student. In other words, the teacher and the student have to be present in the same time, at the same place, in order for a pedagogical situation to be able to take place. Now, we shall understand that the physical condition contains our bodies, placements, distance, and the material objects in the classroom that are being used or not, the medium of communication like air or some kind of other medium, and others. And temporal condition includes not only the exact moment, the now, but it can include all of our own personal history up to that moment. And since the time is always moving forward, there are never two exact same pedagogical or any kind of situations. It's impossible for the same situations to happen twice. Firstly, because the physical conditions are always changing, like the time of day, year, weather, available objects, and so on. And secondly, because we are constantly evolving as people, and we are not the same person that we were some time before. So the teacher, every time they teach, necessarily find themselves in a brand new situation. They might have experience teaching, but in the moment, for example, if one of the students raises their hand, even if the teacher have heard the exact question before, they haven't heard it yet from this exact student. And the student also has her own special personal history that differentiates her from the last student who may be asked the same question. And secondly, the professor now has the more experience since they last heard this question, so they are not the same person as well, right? This is all understandable. So in a pedagogical situation, what will the teacher do when this happens? How are they to answer? How do they know what should they do or not do, say or not say? Now, this is greatly summed up by the well-known work of Max von Manen, especially in his book, What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. And he obviously explores the notion of pedagogical tact as to offer his answer. But for us here, the question that I took as more important for this thought experiment is the question of what to do, because this points to the fact that this is actually a moral question or a moral dilemma. So when the teacher thinks, what should I do now? That's actually them posing a moral question. So this is also how von Manen views a pedagogical situation, as a moral situation. So now, as we understand the pedagogical situation as a moral one, we can think about it as such. And now I would like to go to another important source on this topic that was for me important, and maybe some of you know it, because that was an ex-Yugoslavian philosopher that was a member of Praxis school. That's Milanković. Now, in his book Ethics and Freedom, Etika I Sloboda, he tries to understand what is freedom. Now, for him, freedom shouldn't be simply reduced to the freedom from something, like from oppression, nor it can be reduced to freedom to do something that has already been done, like the freedom of choice. For him, the full scope of human freedom has to include the possibility of innovation. This is not meant in a sense of simply following some new trend. It is meant as a creating of a brand new option for doing. This is the opposite of reproducing or keeping up the status quo, and this, in a sense, is a revolutionary reading of freedom, understanding freedom as a creative action. Now, how did Kangarga make this jump? He noticed that Aristotle presented two ways of human acting or doing. This is different in English, so forgive me. An artist and moral action. An artist, obviously, through human actions, creates an artwork that has never existed before. This is a new artwork, an original. And here, Kangarga drew a parallel with a regular human action. Because if a human being has the ability to create, as in create artwork, surely he can create himself and the world around him by proxy, in a way that has not yet existed before, same as the original artwork. Now, we are able to understand human, aka moral action, as a creative action, and as an act of creating yourself in a way that you haven't been or existed or acted or done before. And also we understand now that human can act or do in a way not only to reproduce the current way the world is, but they can also innovate the world itself. So the free agent is creative, innovative one. Now let's go back to our teacher, and they found themselves in a pedagogical, aka a moral situation. Now, if we understand this teacher not only as a mere agent of reproduction, then we understand that the possibility of pedagogical action is not only a possibility of acting morally, but also acting revolutionary, creatively, and or innovatively. In the pedagogical situation lies the possibility, the potential to act as it has never been done or seen before. Now, this can be taken with as much impact as one sees fit, but it simply means that the teacher themselves does not have to repeat the predetermined set way of doing things. They can innovate, right? This does not necessarily mean purely improvising, nor does it mean going off rails. It means to take on the responsibility for acting as a free-thinking, critical, moral subject. So the teacher cannot be reduced to choosing to act from option A, B, or C that he learned from some textbook. The teacher has the right and the autonomy as a free agent to create his own praxis. Now we can talk about praxis itself. It is possible to think of teaching or any pedagogical work as a type of craft that uses its own kind of technology, methods, and aids to serve its purpose, as didactics tell us. And here, I would like to suggest that it's useful to think about teaching and pedagogical practice as a mixture of technology and art. And in this idea, I follow ideas presented in the book of Louis Mumford, who presents the contrast between the two extremes, art versus technology, both formative human aspects for him. And here we can also nod back to the Nietzsche's parallel ideas of Apollonian as orderly, quantitative, mechanical technology, and Dionysian as imaginative and subconscious, qualitative art. Now, Mumford also advocates for balancing those two forces in order to benefit both humans and nature alike. And by contrasting them, he tries to better understand all human activity, same as I do here with pedagogical practice as the part of human activity. Now, Mumford shows that art is the part of human activity meant for transformation and personality, while as for teaching, in order to be more mechanically successful and more reproductive, for technology, that should be free of any and all human personality. And while Mumford rightfully recognized the process of total and extreme mechanization as fascist, he does not require technology to be fully rejected or erased. He asks for balance between technology and art, quantitative and qualitative, machine and the soul. It is important to notice that the true objectivity includes both technology as impersonal, but also the subject itself, because it is the human subject itself that makes the technology relevant in light of his own existence. So in order for the activity to be truly objective, the subjective perspective of art must be brought in balance. Machine should always serve the human purpose, not the other way around. And I'd like to add that I think that the same should stand true in the classroom. Now, for the critique of fascist adoration of extreme mechanization, as represented in Futurist Manifesto, we shall better consult Walter Benjamin. But that is not the point of this discussion here, although it is an important, in my opinion, facet of the story to at least point out. But now I am finally at the point of introducing Benjamin's concept of aura. So now we can recognize that praxis is a specific human activity that should be, as Mumford shows, put into balance in the sense that the teacher shouldn't solely rely on technology, but also must, in a sense of Bildung, bring forward their own subjective part, their own personality and art part. It is important to note that the artistic part is what brings transformation and personal growth. This is well explored in the tradition of Bildung through the concept of a teacher as a personal role model and guide in the formative community, like, for example, in Knoll's work. So how come when you walk down the corridor of a school and you listen to the classrooms, you are able to tell, oh, that's Miss Mary's class, oh, that's Mr. John's class, right? You can recognize what class is where. Well, that's because of the fact that the nature of teaching is co-creative. So we can tell what style or method is preferred by each teacher and their class. But that's more than just that, it's more than the specific teaching technology. It's actually the authenticity of the teacher, or better yet, the pedagogical subjects, both the teacher and the student, which together produce the original work that is praxis. And I explored the notion of authenticity in my master thesis, but in short, I believe authenticity to be the congruency of inner world and the outer doing of a person that is human subject that is capable of transformation. Now, speaking on authenticity, here I finally come to the point of this presentation, that is Benjamin's essay on aura. It is well known, the main point of his essay is that the original cannot be reproduced without using its aura. So aura is a combination of historic and material presence of the original artifact. And you can see in that reminds us of the time and space, the temporal conditions of the pedagogical situations here and now. So let me say that again. If we apply this framework on the case of pedagogical subjects and their praxis, both student and teacher doing it together, we are reminded of the temporal and physical conditions necessary for the unique pedagogical situation to take place, which we talked about earlier. So we can tell that the praxis itself has some type of an aura, or maybe we'd better call it pedagogical aura, to differentiate from Benjamin's, because it shares the same factors, which in turn, this implies two things. First of all, that the pedagogical subject is an author of an original work of some kind. This in turn means that this work has an aura that is by default not mechanically reproducible. The second important thing to notice is that an original artwork, according to Benjamin, has an aura that at the same time attracts attention and pushes it away. So we know from Herbert that this is extremely similar to interest, or the circle of thought, that includes examining the subject and then contemplating about it and internalizing the thing. So this is the circle of thought. The thing like takes me in, then I think about it, right? The same as aura. At the same time, it brings me closer and pushes me more far away. But a reproduction does not share this quality. Instead, it is possible to ingest the produce of mechanically mass-produced media without actually concentrating on it or understanding it. If we apply this observation to schools today, we can easily notice that this is exactly the overarching principle of knowledge reproduction that rules the contemporary education. Now, this is happening because of overly mechanicistic means of reproduction applied to the technology of teaching and all teaching in general. And interestingly for Benjamin, from authenticity not having the same meaning as like sincerity, from authenticity actually comes authority, like personal authority that we could see in a teacher. This would be an interesting starting point for a deeper analysis of pedagogical authority, right? But that would be a digression here. And for now, to conclude this short presentation, using Benjamin's framework to think about praxis has strong implications to it. It means that praxis cannot be reproduced, and this is the point of my elaborate here. Just a second. It has to actually be the praxis. It has to be an original work of authentic subject. So in order to be recognized as qualitatively transformative for the personality of pedagogical subject, praxis has to consider, include, and respect its artful nature, not only the technological nature of teaching. And to finish it off, I would like to emphasize that the pandemic of pre-made or ready-made teaching plans and overuse of didactic tools just for the sake of it, just for the sake of using technology or the tool or the teaching tool, has not yet earned the right to be called pedagogical practice. It has to have a personal purpose behind it and the artistic part or the artistic mode of creation. Mechanically and mass reproduced practice has not yet earned to be called praxis, in my opinion. Instead, praxis has to include the other dialectic half, originality, personality, and human subjectivity of a practitioner as a free subject. And this maybe not, this I have not maybe talked about in this speech, short speech, but this is also necessarily a critical subject. It's not only any subject, but a free subject, the practitioner as a free subject, in order to be recognized as true, has to include the transformative praxis. And in today's world of extreme reproduction in media on one hand and war and other adversities on the other hand, there is a dire need to advocate for autonomy and artistry of authentic pedagogical subjects, teachers and students who can together realize an original praxis. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Anna, very much. And we can proceed to Helena Dahlberg. Yes, you can join us. You will have a presentation, yes, it's prepared for you. Yes, I think so. In order to see the presentation. Yes.
Thank you for this invitation. I'm Helena Dahlberg, I'm from Sweden. My PhD was in history of ideas, and I moved on to healthcare sciences eventually. So this presentation is the in-between of the turning world. So it's both philosophy, but also I also teach nursing students in drama pedagogy and Feldenkrais, and I will tell you a little bit about it later. So how can I switch it? Okay. So university education today, you can say that it focuses on theory and tools. So if you, for example, is going to be engineer, you can have a tool for, you can learn the tool how to work with this, and the theory is very important. And the teacher is there to contribute to the professions and the profession's experiences. So the education is most in theory. Oops. So there is a difference between theory, reflection, and praxis or practice. There is drama education, where students train in communication, empathy, and ethical education. So it's quite different from the usual look at education today. And there is also Feldenkrais, and I think you doesn't know about Feldenkrais. It's not well known for the most of you, I think. But Feldenkrais is learning how students' movements are connected in their own body. So it's, I will tell you later the connections between drama pedagogy and Feldenkrais. But it's also used as a pedagogical tool in university, but mostly in dance and theater. So now we come to the relationship between drama education and Feldenkrais. And what are they connected to, or what are their ground within drama education and Feldenkrais? It's phenomenology, and I will later tell you also about a little bit about phenomenology. So you can write and talking with words. That's what I'm doing right now. I wrote my PowerPoint, and I'm talking to you about it right now. But there is also an experiential movement, embodied exercise, and I'm going to do it with you later if I have the time. So how can you find the difference between listening to me and feeling your own body? It's how can you listen to me and know what I am saying and knowing why I am learning something for you, but how can you feel your own body and how can it contribute to you learn about yourself and about the contact. Yeah. So I'm going to talk to you now about drama education. I will do this in different kind of steps. First drama education, then Feldenkrais, and then phenomenology. So that was my, yeah. So drama education, it's learn to how to communicate with each other and in their profession. So I said before drama pedagogy, but I think it's drama education because it's not that you teach drama as to become an actor or something, but it's in the education. So how can you be a nurse, for example? So I'm teaching nurses in drama pedagogy. So the learning is communication. And also the teacher's role is to provide a safe place for students. So it's not only that they could learn from their teacher, but also that they are provided in a safe place, the borders of drama and play. So it's both to be, I don't remember the word, but to be in this kind of situation and that it's a safe place. But also safe time. It's not about talking about safe place, but the beginning and ending of exercise. So the teacher should also teach not only the safe place, but also the safe time. The safe time. How can we construct this this education, not this education, but this lesson? I'm sorry, I have some difficulty to reach the words. It's because I have a diagnosis and a treatment, so I have a little difficult to explain. But anyway, so it's both the safe place and the safe time. So it's very important about safety. And the space between. Students have their real world as a background, but they play the fictional world of drama. So it was this that I spoke to in the morning with the Besta. They have the real world, but they are playing the fictional world. And this context that I am expecting to find is what is in between these two worlds, between the real world and the fictional world of drama. And you can say that there is an oscillation between reality and fictionality. So it's both about the real world and the fictional world, sorry, between closeness and distance. So this is drama education. It's just shorted into a few points, but so they experience a drama situation and then taking a step back to reflect their embodied actions with others in a group. So it's not just about doing different kind of lessons, but it's also about reflecting. So if there is a difference also between doing a lesson for when you are contacting the other people and you are playing a drama or something, but it's also to reflect upon this lesson. How did I do this? How was my impression or so? So there are different kind of place in the lesson of drama pedagogy. So Feldenkrais pedagogy is I want to compare them. So Feldenkrais pedagogy is, you can talk about it as an embodied praxis and reflection. So it's mostly to do with the lived body, but they don't speak about it philosophically. I don't know what it is called, but it's embodied praxis and reflection. And the ability and curiosity to change, because they are in Feldenkrais, we are interested in how my body moves, and how when I move my arm and my hand, how does it affect my shoulder or my leg or something, or my feet. So we are interested in the whole body. So it's unit. There is a unit between different body parts, but also to separate a different part from the other. So it's both to find the wholeness of the body, but also to separate. Am I moving my hand and I'm not moving something else? What is special about this hand moving? So there is also focus on the small parts. So how to move oneself to find your own way. There is also a particular point in Feldenkrais, so it's not so much about communication between students, but to the student to communicate to her or himself. And the freedom of human being with the beginning in the structure of human body. So they are always interested in the freedom, but there is not freedom itself, it's freedom that is structured. So about the human being and world. So there is also a teacher structuring this this lesson. There is a teacher structuring. Now we are starting in this kind of you are moving your arm or you are moving your leg and so forth. So the teacher is structuring something and the students are doing it, but they do it from what they have their own capacity or their own way of doing it. So the structure that the teacher gives is not hindering the movement, but gives the person other ways to find the freedom of choice. So there is not, what do you say? No, not interception, but it's, sorry, I cannot find the word. Adversity or something. Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's not between the structure and freedom. There is they are moving together. If you have to have freedom, you also have to have a structure as a student. And the last part here is to enjoy and feel the openness and the curiosity of movement, and to have fun. So in Feldenkrais lessons, it's very playful to see the curiosity about doing this right here and right now and so. So now I want to join the two, drama education and Feldenkrais. So I think one of the aspects is to feel their own participation with others and to learn how the practical experience will be of use for their professional work and life. So Feldenkrais could also be used for nurses, for example, and for other kind of professions. But it's also a safe place and creativeness and curiosity in both drama education and in Feldenkrais. So my question is then, how can you use the middle in between them? What is their common theoretical ground in between drama education and Feldenkrais? How can you join them together? Well, I came to phenomenology and Merleau-Ponty, who provides the ground and reflection between these two practices. And I'm just talking about the last project that he was working on, the visible, l'invisible. And he speaks about the fleshy relationship between the living being and its surroundings. For example, how one can touch and be touched. And the encountering between the body and the world as a, and it's a quote, reciprocal insertion and the intertwining of one in the other. So he's always talking about you can perceive something, but this perceiving is always has a ground in the world or in yourself. How can you perceive something? Well, you have your ground in the world, and the world is focusing on what you perceive. I don't know if I said the wrong thing, but anyway, I will explain it. And the right hand can also touch the left hand. And the border between them can be understood as a shift or flesh. So how can you understand this between touching the right hand and feeling the touch with the right hand? And Merleau-Ponty explains this as different kind of words, but flesh is one of them. So the reversibility between perceiving and perceived, there is a gap between them. There is a connection, of course. I said that the world is the background of me perceiving something, but there is also a gap between me and the world. So the body is an inability to feel, see, and hear yourself. But it's also an ability to see, hear, and feel yourself. So there are both kind of informances. I don't know how to say it, but anyway, I think you know. So, yeah. So, I want to just give you an exercise. Is that possible? Yes. So, you can just sit on your chair and feel how you are sitting right now and how your weight is falling down to the ground. And if you want to, you can close your eyes or you can look at me, but it's not, I'm not saying something, but you should relate it to your own feeling. And this is from Merleau-Ponty. So you can have your right hand on the right leg. You can take your left hand to feel the right hand. And what it is. How can you feel the right hand? Can you feel the back of the hand, the fingers, the nails maybe? And maybe if you turn the hand around, you can feel the bottom of the hand, or I think you can say that. And maybe the, I don't remember, but also the beginning up to the arm or something. And maybe you can also feel the different kind of fingers, the thumb, the other finger, the third finger, the fourth one, and the little finger. And feel the whole of your hand. How does it feel, your right hand? And when you are moving your left hand, can you also feel with the right hand? Can you feel how the left hand is moving? And it's very difficult to feel the left hand moving. So, but you can try to find the flesh in between, or just to find the in-betweenness between right and left hand. Can you feel the right hand? And can you feel the left hand? And just sit still on your chair. Feel your heaviness down in the chair, down on the ground. And leave your hands alone. And just sit there and open your eyes if you have them closed. So this is another kind of experience which I was talking about. And how could you feel this experience right now? I think you have a very short time to feel your hand. But can you reverse this? No, you cannot say that. Can you explain this with theory? Well, it's different kind of to understand it through theory is one kind, and to understand it through exercise, practical exercise, is another kind. So how can you mix these two? I'm not sure yet, but this is my ending of not only this picture, but it's describing the in-between, between the left hand and the right hand, in the flesh from Merleau-Ponty. And how can you experience this when we're doing it right now and right here, and how can you think about it? So I have an example of a tennis player, and she's waiting for the ball to arrive, and she's open for the new moment. So you can see the tennis player and what she's waiting for the ball, and you can say that she has an open awareness, the active waiting in the moment. So how can she be active and how can she wait in the same time? She's active, but she's waiting for something. So to understand and feel this in between, the beginning between them. And I think that there is a beginning between the two hands. How can you feel this intersection between them? And we can also speak about it as a turning around the middle point. It's an activity that the teacher and student cannot really be prepared for. You always have to wait for example, the tennis player to play a ball to you, and you have to prepare for what are she or he doing. But it can be different kind of ways. And I think this is an explanation for the different kinds that I have explained you right now, both the praxis and the theory. Both experience something and the philosophical theory. So, listening and doing, what is the difference? You have been listening to me, what am I explaining to you right now? But you also did, how can you feel your right hand? Or how can you feel your left hand? So there is a movement in between to feel how your embodied being moves and communicates, to feel your hands moving or how you meet the other person. So it can not only be in Feldenkrais, it can be how you are moving your hand or how you feel your other hand. And in Merleau-Ponty, it's also to feel your own hand, but it can also be in drama pedagogy, where you meet the other person's hand, feel how the other persons are moving, and the wholeness between you. So to reflect this movement is also important, to transfer it into philosophy of teaching. So it's both important to feel this and reflect on it in philosophy. So to play on this verge between words and experiencing, between describing and doing, the question cannot be solved, but it has to be asked. I think you always have to ask the question. And the turning point between question and answer. So this is the ending of the beginning.
Thank you, Helena, very much for this interesting exercise and the presentation. And now, Aleksandar Milanković from the University of Belgrade, Faculty of Philosophy, will join us with the presentation, The Meaning and Value of Teaching Tools in the Perspective of Gilbert Simondon's Conception of Imagination, if I pronounce that correctly.
Thanks. Thank you for your time. Our usual intuitions and conceptions about imagination in teaching practice state that imagination is mental operation, mental capacity, or perceptual capacity. And that intuitions and beliefs derive from philosophical traditions. The history of philosophy since Aristotle provides us with a series of definitions and meanings. Imagination is a mental ability, mental capacity, mental imagery, conscious, highly subjective mental experience of imagining. Following Kant's philosophy, imagination is a faculty for representing an object without its presence in intuition, a faculty that connects sensibility and understanding, or mediates between sensibility and understanding to produce cognition. But what is the connection between imagination and other areas of psychophysical life? What is the connection between imagination and movement, with kinesthesia, with the primordial activity of organism? Does it occur simultaneously with perception or precedes it? Is it necessarily a conscious process? Furthermore, how does imagination arise, and more specifically, how does an image arise? And why is all this important for education? Gilbert Simondon's imagination theory is focused on the notion of image. He proposes a new notion. It is not simplistic or linear. It refers to divergent realities, since mental images are only part of a wider set of phenomena. Images include, for instance, bodily motor schemas and social stereotypes, as well as image objects such as artworks or technical objects. According to Simondon, almost all main objects are in some way image objects, endowed with meaning and affective and emotional charge, and are capable of linking the individual and its milieu. Simondon does not merely want to say that things are dependent on manufactured images, but that things are objectified images that result from a process or the image cycle. He proposes a theory of becoming of images, a process of emerging and their constitution. The image cycle is connected to an organism's primordial activity, but this activity need not to be wholly conscious. There is a significant unconscious infrastructure that produces and conveys images, while only some aspects of this imaging activity cross the threshold of consciousness. Besides, he states that images are entirely real. Their exteriority and relative independence are evident not only in objectified images or image objects, but also in the form of images appearing to mental awareness. They maintain a certain opacity. Simondon's notion of image transgresses some of our contemporary categorical bounds as well, categorical bounds, and refuses to be determined simply along the standard dividing lines between subject-object, real, unreal, conscious, unconscious, image, or perception. He traces the created object or an artifact in the broadest sense, technical artifact, artwork, religious object, back to the three phases of the image cycle. The first phase comprises anticipatory motor schemas on the biological or vital level. The second deals with mental images that synthesize cognitive, perceptual, and affective emotional charges. And the third concerns memory images that are systematically organized in a symbolic world. Perceptual images are modes of gathering information from the milieu, from individual's life environment. He emphasizes the processual and active nature of perception. It cannot be separated from the autokinetic system that is the body, nor from the organism's felt needs and desires to explore its surrounds and learn about its content. Thanks to motor perceptual images, an organism, even of the most primitive type, organizes its milieu, its environment, in accordance with primary categories of value and signification. He is famous for his account of practical invention that involves constructing technical objects as tools of mediation between the living being and its milieu. But he also speaks of artworks and different artifacts. He assumes that different artifacts bear mediating function that establishes new compatibility between humanity and nature. He argues that the multitude of technical objects grounded in image cycle constitute an envelope for the individual which mediates between the subjective, the objective, and the social world. He understands this envelope as creating a network of two pathways from nature to humans and humans to nature, displaying a multitude of relays. Through the mediation of artifacts, humans may communicate with and act upon nature in certain key points. This is just a general layout. His theory is very complicated, so this is just briefly. Implications for education. If images emerge in the domain of the primordial motoricity, in the domain of the first, most subtle bodily movements and activities of the organism, it implies that imagination is not reducible to a mental state, or to a perceptual state, or to a conscious state, or mere mental activity, or series of mental operations. In other words, there is no ontological or epistemological gap between imagination and the psychomotor world. There is no ontological and epistemological gap between subjective imaginative experience and the world of objects. Therefore, there is no didactic gap either. Education encompasses all domains in a single process, both mental and physical, both subjective and objective, both spiritual and material. This implies that the material, objective dimension of education acquires a new philosophical and pedagogical meaning. Teaching aids, learning objects, teaching tools, technical, artistic, and social artifacts are not just mere objects that support and scaffold learning, but integral elements of the process, inseparable from primarily subjective experiences, not related only to mental operations and states. They are not objects outside the subject, but are factors of an integral experience. Therefore, imagination is not only an internal subjective experience and is not in the head or only in consciousness, but is branched and scattered in interactions with the world of objects, hidden as a possibility in learning objects, in teaching aids, in learning materials. All teaching objects and teaching tools have an imaginative dimension, of course, not by themselves, but in the network of different interactions. Handling teaching aids, manual manipulation, activation of motor skills, kinesthesia, and movements in the classroom have an imaginative dimension and represent the basis for the imaginative development of the psychomotor domain. just a little remark, psychomotor domain is relatively neglected in pedagogy. It is separated from higher mental capacities. In Bloom taxonomy, we still do not have elaborated levels for psychomotor domain. It is still in the process. Simondon's conception of image and imagination opens up a new field for understanding mediation, a central concept in the social-cultural constructivism of Lev Vygotsky. Technical artifacts and objects mediate between man and his world. Thus, also manual activities and manual work acquire a new dimension on the trail of the conception of activity by Alexei Nikolaevich Leontiev. Individual development is unfolding through activity, through labor, through work. For example, the use of technical artifacts does not mean only the practical application and development of technical innovation. It can cultivate and nurture artistic creativity. It is possible to take a tool, an instrument, a device, and make a work of art from it. Example, Pablo Picasso's bicycle, kako se kaže, volan za bicikl. And vice versa. The use of artistic artifacts does not mean the exclusion of technical or technological awareness. In the analysis of a painting or a sculpture, we can always examine the technological aspect, accessories, tools. In other words, technical instruments mediate the development of imagination, mediate the development of imagination, and application of tools is a factor in the manifestation of imagination. All this opens the field for a theoretical framework that would include both social-cultural constructivism, the theory of network actor, the concept of social material learning, and new materialism as a set of paradigms for understanding education and learning in a world without dichotomies between subjective and objective, as well as without their mutual dissolution. We are talking about different levels of a single comprehensive process, about differentiations and the integrations of subjectivity in the world of objects and objectivity in the world of subjects. It is very difficult for us to view the world of art and technology as devoid of subjectivity. It carries deeply embedded traces of subjectivity to the very core, where in fact every object is an extension of subjectivity, just as subjectivity is an extension of the objective world, the world of objective phenomena. Simondon's conception of imagination provides a conceptual framework for application of teaching tools as the grounds for the development of micromotorics and the psychomotor domain in general, as well as kinesthesia and the world of both conscious and unconscious movements and different experiences of embodiment, but in the specific sense of their imaginative potential. That implies that teaching tools promote new possibilities of dynamic creation and application of artifacts with the activation of the psychomotor domain, which affirm both artistic and technical innovation in teaching in order to deepen both cognitive and sensorial and even palpable experiences of the psychosocial process of teaching. In this conceptual framework, education is conceived as the development of agentivity and empowerment to create. Such a development consists in a kind of individuation of the pupils and their creative practice. The fundamental concept of Gilbert Simondon is the concept of individuation. That concept implies that individual is never already given. It has to be produced in the creative process, in the productive process of, he calls it transduction. It's a very complex notion of developing, of processual expanding of individual always beyond individual. Individual produces itself not by reducing itself on individual, but to expand itself beyond in the world of objects, in the creating and interaction with objects. Thanks.
Thank you, Aleksandar. And now your questions, comments are very welcome, so please.
Thank you. I have a question for Helena. Well, actually, first I would like to say that the exercise was very interesting, and it really made me focus on the in-between. Like you said, I felt the warmth of one hand, then switching to the warmth of the other hand, but it's at the same time the same warmth. So I just wanted to share that. That's the first thing. And the second is, do you think that we can find some connection between Merleau-Ponty's, this idea of, because that's what it seems to me that your lecture was about, the idea of in-betweenness, embodiment, but also on the other hand, what you said in the beginning about the real world and the fictional worlds. Do you think that there is something to be said about the connection between the two?
Yes. I'm just, I am, with your exercise, it was very nice, but I did it very slow, very fast. So, but usually I do it with a lot of more minutes, but anyway. Yeah, the connection between Merleau-Ponty and this, for me, it's on the point. Merleau-Ponty and his philosophy is the ground of drama pedagogy or drama education and Feldenkrais. So he's explaining it more theoretically, and what I want to explain is the in-between the theoretical philosophy and the exercise, or how to do it in practice, in Praxis. So how can you understand this in between, where you can, you as a researcher you can apply your theory in this kind of experiences when you are doing something with someone other, and with your experience with your, about the lessons that you do. How can you feel the theory behind it? And for nurses, for example, they can understand their theory that they have learned before, but now they understand it in a better way because they could do it in praxis. So after they had done this experiences, we reflect on it. So how can they come up with these kind of reflections? And this reflection, for me, it can also go to phenomenology. I'm not speaking about phenomenology when I have drama pedagogy, but for me it's Merleau-Ponty explaining this kind of experiencing. I'm not sure how I can explain it more, but he's explaining this in between. This in between experience something and when you are not experiencing and when you are experiencing, it's the same relationship. When I'm seeing this class, I'm seeing it from one particular way, from this view, but I see all of it, and it comes also from the world and from me. So yeah, and the flesh is also in between. I'm sorry, I cannot explain it better right now, but
thanks.
Yes, thank you. I also have a question for Helena and for Anna. Actually, my question for Helena, I think that you may have answered it, but maybe we can check it. What was particularly profound to me is that in this exercise, in this type of teaching, you are going in a very deep immersion of a very radical material kind. So I was wondering first, how you and do you pull off the students from it? Now listening to you, I think I understood that you actually encourage the students to feel this, what was previously the gap. So that is the gap between the theory and practice and also the body and the mind and so on and so on. But now I am thinking, I'm interested in how does it reflect in their future work? Did you manage to notice what actually happens in the field? That is for Helena. And for Anna, just a minute, I have some notes here. Yeah, well, if the praxis basically cannot be reproduced and we are always in a kind of a new state, so that basically means, if I am thinking right, then that we can't actually go into this kind of a run to be actually better or to think how we are possibly worse, because we're always new. So somehow this notion that the practice cannot be reproduced also cancels the idea of performing, like performing for a result, if I'm right. So now I'm wondering, can this idea or this kind of an attitude contribute to some kind of comfortability, or even can it have a relaxing effect to the field of education, so we find this time to stop, reflect, to find some time for a slow professorship, to find some time for listening, to care? So can it all somehow go together? That's it. Thanks.
Sorry, can you just repeat your first question again? I heard it, but I forgot about it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. How does this deep immersion goes further? So how do you pull them off from there, and how does it reflect to their professions?
Okay. How they do with their professionals, I'm not sure. I don't know, because I'm not with them when they do their nursing profession. But for me, I read their what they are writing down after these lessons, and they are very, they feel that they know the theory with the practice. So there is also, they know the theory, they know the caring theory that they have read before, and they know it through praxis. So when they do praxis, they can feel that, oh, I cannot contact the other person because I'm shy or something. Can be different kind of things. So this depth in between them, between theory and praxis, that's what I wanted to put together, to understand this in-betweenness, or this depth in between the theory and praxis. And I called it, well, Milanković called it as flash, but he doesn't explain the experiential, how can you experience this that he's talking about? Yeah, you can feel it about touching your hand. So how can you feel it? And I cannot put it into words, but how can you explain this into theory? So I'm trying to do both things. I don't know if you found this as an answer, but yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, first, thank you very much for the question. It's really a step forward in what I summed up here, and I really like it because I would agree with you. I think this poses the question of how do I prepare for class, and I think all three presentations were very connected, and like what you do is very connected to this question. If I think about praxis in this way of original work, it's not, as I said, simply improvising on the spot. You can still prepare, but in what kind do you have to prepare? So this is what you said, slow pedagogy, or I have to take in the idea that the person that I'm looking at is a specific person, and how do I make experience for them that will include this, like touch between this person and me, and what is the in-between between us that cannot be planned 100%. You can, you know, as a good teacher, you can make some kind of idea what's going to happen, but it always has to have the space for originality, and that can only happen with slow pedagogy, with letting the space and the people who are in the space speak for themselves or do the thing themselves, let it go unexpectedly. And for the teacher, it means learning new techniques about the extra rational, about how the tool cannot be divorced from me as a teacher who uses this didactic tool or pedagogical tool. So I would agree with you. That would be my answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Anna in the sense that the three presentations were super. I mean, somehow connected, and so wanted to praise the curatorship of the organization. Thank you for this. And I don't know, trying to find some common ground between the three. I was thinking about the idea of present, the idea of the attempt to experiment the present as a time, but also as a condition for attention, for example. And listening to the three of us, of you, I was trying to understand if you agree that a tool for creating conditions for attention or for experimenting the present could be repetition, if it makes sense in each one of your claims or your presentations. If you can think about repetition not as a reproduction of the same, but if you can think that as a pedagogical tool or an exercise or a way to I don't know, to create style, for example. I was fascinated by the example of the lessons, right? Meaning the teacher speaks every time the same way, so you develop a style of a class, and this is very artistic, and I think that maybe if you think about repetition, you could think about tools for, I don't know, making this cut of the chaos, or tools for exercising and experimenting the flesh. And I don't know, it's a question for the three of you, if you agree that repetition can be a tool for awareness or the creation of conditions to attention and experiment the present.
I would just love to start and then let you, because this was when you were saying safe time, how to create safe time that can start in the middle and stop, and the question about how do you pull out your students out of this immersion. I'm agreeing that repetition, for example, as an artist does, like painter, he does the same motive over and over again, and the teacher, through all the years of his teaching, he often does the same class over and over again, but he can actually try to be better. The fact that it is original does not mean that it cannot be better in time. It just means that every time it has to be his own work and the work of people. So that's the point of the original, not that it's not repeated, as you said. And I think repetition could be excellent way of one of the methods that we can try to understand how to make safe time. Like if someone goes for a dance class, the first time he's not really sure about it, but after a year he's pretty comfortable with the people around and the community. This is why the formative community is also a big part of the personal approach, right? So yeah, that's amazing, and I think there's a great connection here.
Yes, I agree with you also, but and I also think that you explained that this
maybe
safe time.
Maybe I did not get it right.
No. It's very what you say is very interesting, and also the safe time and the safe place, because you are building the walls around the students. So how can they feel this one inside the time, inside the place? Of course, you can also repeat it many times, and the teacher can experience it in the same way, but also in a different way. But when you also make the structure, when the teacher can make a wall around the students, they are in this time right now and this place right now, and you cannot repeat it. Of course, you can repeat it also, as you said, but you can also not repeat it, because it's a special kind of thing that it happens right now, how you feel your hand, or how you feel when you contact with another people right now, or with another colleague right now. So I say it's both kind of ways. You can repeat it, of course, but you can not repeat it. So
Education is by itself repetitive. The question is, how do we, how does something new enters the process in a timely manner? So how can we create something new? Repetition is a given form, and now how can we in this repetitive pattern create something new? We have to create something new if we want to educate someone or ourselves. If it is not new, it is worthless. It is just a reproduction. So we have to find different ways to create something new.
Is there any other questions? No.
Izvini, molim te, Milica. Just a correction. Maybe not to create something new, but to let something new in.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, because if I can just say, maybe the repetition part that is not creating something new is not maybe worthless by itself, but is not, in my opinion, is still the educational part that can also be seen as a reproduction of everything the culture have gained from the history and the technology and stuff. But to change something in the world, and we can find many examples of problems that we would like to change, that's why it's necessary to have the element of innovation. So it's not to say that all repetitive and like, if you have to learn about history of your country, it's not like in vain, but it's not yet the new. And if that is happening between the students and the teacher, the connection of them creating new knowledge, that's the original that I was talking about, right? That was a great question.
I just wanted to share in addition to this, I think this to let something new happen is actually what happens in this uncertain point of teaching, when something is not a repetition, but something new, but in the same time, it's not something entirely new. So as you said, it's not an improvisation, it is something that is prepared, but to also be there to let something new to happen. So thank you for that, I will keep thinking.
I don't know why I'm thinking about this idea of this is not, it's not improvisation, but is, what did you just say? Not a no, but you have to prepare. Because, and I don't know, I was thinking that to be able to improvise, you have to prepare a lot, right? Meaning, I was thinking about this idea of ritornello in Deleuze Guattari. They speak about the jazz, for example. There's pretty much repetition. I mean, there's a phrase, and you just repeat the phrase over and over and over, meaning finding some variations. At some point, you were too far from the original. I say, yeah, let's go back to the original. And when you come back to the original phrase, it's not the original phrase anymore. So I think it's super interesting to think about repetition as improvisation in a certain sense, not doing whatever, but like in each repetition, finding the variation or the difference. And I think this could be mediation between chaos, right? The nature and our conditions to.
I was just going to talk about the tennis player. I had that as an example, but of course you can also do it with improvisation in music or improvisation in dance. So it has also a knowledge before that is repetition, because you have to know how do you play your tennis. And this woman who is waiting for the ball, she knows how to play the tennis. She knows everything, but she doesn't know how the ball will fall on her. So of course it's a repetition, but it's also a new beginning for something.
One example of that is a famous composition Steve Reich composed, music for 18 musicians. We have different layers of repetitions, little figures, little musical structures, repetitive structures, but the pace, the layers are differently composed throughout the composition. In my opinion, that composition is an example of education. We have repetition, okay. How do we organize these repetitive patterns in different situations, configurations? How do we repeat? What do we repeat? So jazz music is also like an exemplary of education. To improvise, you have to repeat a phrase 1,000,000 times. Miles Davis was a great improviser, but he was first of all a skilled musician who repeatedly played different music for on and on. Thank you. That's an important issue.
And you can see clearly the connection with pedagogical tact. Like musical tact is understanding when to speed up, when to slow down, when to repeat, when to skip, or stuff like that. So I think the tennis player is an amazing example. And I did the example of someone raising the question, or right here, like you don't know what questions or who is going to be sitting here, or is someone going to ask you something, but you have to be prepared in a sense that you are well-versed, or as much as you are well-versed as a teacher or as a presenter or anything, and then await for the new thing that's coming in. And I think that's great to think about it as openness. And then not only you can, okay, oh, I understand, you asked me this, so I'm going to do this, I'm going to speed up or raise my voice or use something of my body to do the discipline, right? But it's not only that, but it has to be the openness for something that I don't even know. And in my practice, we try to learn how to deal with the uncomfortable feeling, because not knowing something can be uncomfortable, and you don't have to, like in this sense, you don't have to teach someone something that he already knows. You have to do something to make him go to the place that he is not yet well versed with. Like Biesta said at the plenary, that they don't know, then they don't know yet what to ask. Like this, you have to give students something, and they didn't ask you for it because they are not yet finished students, right? If they are already finished students, then they wouldn't be learning. So they still, and we as teachers who are changing, we still don't know things. And what happens when there's a potential for something new to happen? It's not always comfortable for everyone. Someone who chases new knowledge, it's gonna feel great. But someone who does not yet know something can be uncomfortable. And then to be able to be present and to understand that I am touching the world right now with my whole body. I show this to my students, like I imagine like a film all over myself, and I touch the film and the world touches it. So when I move, the world moves around me, right? And when the world moves, it changes me also. So I think that's why teaching is very like a difficult embodied profession, because for me personally, I'm very tired after I teach, because I was using my whole body to touch and sense other people's, not only feelings, but like their whole presence. And when they are uncomfortable, I have to, or when I'm uncomfortable with something new happening, I have to like put extensive energy into holding that space, because that's where something new is being born. So we have to hold that maybe uncomfortable place, right?
If there is no any questions at all, I will just ask one question for Aleksandar to elaborate furthermore on the concept of individuation. It was new to me in the context of his theory. So you already said that this theory is complex, so I'm encountering it for the first time. So just to ask, what is the role of the teaching material in that process? So is there does it represent a context for fostering individuation, or is there some kind of a collision?
Gilbert Simondon is far from dialectical theory of individuation. He does not claim that we begin individuation contrary to some negativity. He states that before individual, there is a plenty of possibility, plenty of potentials. The process of individuation is making some of these possibilities real in individual experience. By transcending individual experience, not reducing it to solely individual. So I have to get out of my individual experience through the world of objects. When I am in school, for example, or when I interact with some technical artifact or with some tool or with some instrument, I get out, metaphorically. I have to deal with something outside, which is not outside at the same time. But I have to get out. I have to transcend my usual, how to say it, my usual isolated individual experience. So teaching tools are not just supporting tools, not just scaffolding tools, not just instruments and devices made to support learning. They are elements of individuation. Through teaching tools, I am going out of myself. Dealing with a microscope or with a book or with a screwdriver, I am going out. I am individuating my experience outside of me. So the tools is not just the tool is not just a tool. It is element of individuation. So this is just a general overview. His theory of individuation is very complex, but technical and artistic artifacts and objects play an essential role in the process. He does not emphasize the possibility of alienation. He states that we can lose genuine relation with the world of objects, but if we understand what the individuation is, then we will not be alienated. If we understand that the world of objects is the world which individuates us in two directions, in two pathways. So it is, he is very peculiar philosopher, and I really, I don't know, he's very, he challenges our usual conceptual frameworks. He does not affirm usual dichotomies, usual binary divisions. So the world of objects is our world of individuation. Thanks.
Thanks. So if there is something to add, okay, so we can finish now, and thank you for the great and inspiring presentations, and thank you for the great questions, and I will invite you to have a coffee break, and after that to finish, to join our last sessions for these two, for this day, learning in interaction and digital education. So thank you very much for your attention and presence.
Thank you.